Mr. Horn, will you please take a seat? All right. Good afternoon and welcome to the IID Ground Storage Workshop that we're going to present to you all today. Mr. Garber or Mr. Kelly, who's the presenter?
Yes, but can I put something on the record from closed session, Madam President?
Yeah, we have one item to report from closed session.
The Energy Policy Act of 2005 granted FERC authority to establish and enforce mandatory reliability standards on entities in the energy industry that could impact the bulk electrical system. FERC has developed over 100 reliability standards containing more than 1,000 specific enforcement requirements. These standards became enforceable in June of 2007. WEC, which is NERC, has delegated authority to enforce these reliability standards to the Western Electricity Coordinating Council, or WEC, for entities in the Western Interconnection Area. WEC conducted an IID on-site audit of NERC reliability standards in March of 2008. The WEC audit team found that IID ran a reliable operation. However, the audit identified various alleged violations of reliability standards. IID entered into a settlement to resolve the outstanding reliability standards with regard to the WEC audit in about January of 2009. However, the settlement was conditioned on approval by NERC and FERC. IID agreed to pay a penalty of $450,000 to address the alleged violations without agreeing on any of the violations. This proposed settlement was executed by both parties and submitted to NERC for approval in January of 2010. NERC approved the settlement and it was filed with FERC on February 23, 2011, and FERC has approved it. As a result, this settlement is now being reported out as action that was previously taken by the board, but has now been finalized.
Questions, comments, Mr. Kelly?
Yes, President Mendoza, members of the board, as you know, compliance is an ongoing concern of IID, and it has been a pronounced concern for some years. This settlement that IID entered into some years ago is only now being disclosed because IID was precluded from releasing it by NERC and FERC and the regulatory bodies. So this is IID's first opportunity to disclose this information. We're doing so today because we expect that following publication of this settlement, which occurred, I believe, within the last week, we will be receiving an invoice and paying that settlement amount. I think it's important for the public to understand that that IID just completed a very successful compliance audit just this December, and that compliance remains a preeminent concern of the district because it goes to reliability. And that $450,000 amount could have been, and actually was in the high seven figures before IID regulatory attorney Steve Keene successfully negotiated it down. So if the board has any comments or questions about it, I think that legal counsel said that it's appropriate that we talk about it to some extent.
I would just like to state that under Mr. Tino Zaragoza's leadership and his staff that works for him, we've come to a better understanding. And as you mentioned, the last audit went very well. And it's quite a difference from this audit to the ones a few years ago. So, Mr. Zaragoza, I thank you for your leadership, for your commitment. Ms. Torres, the same. Mr. Campbell. Anybody else here? But anyway, thank you for your work. And we know as we go into the future, we'll do better. Like Director Sanchez said, we're not 100%, but we're a hell of a lot better than we were a few years ago, and I thank you for it. That's it. Comments, Director Sanchez?
I just one quick comment. I just like to, I think stress the importance of the first mock audit that we had in April. That it was a success for us, and because of that, our internal people and staff being able to self-report, one, and then two, do a practice run was a huge benefit to the district, and I thank those people who had the time and dedication to do that, and then we were well prepared for the December audit.
Director Desert?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Tino and all the IID employees that work so hard on this. No one likes to get fines, but these fines are extremely mitigated and much more minor than what they could have been and what they were originally talked about. So good job and thank you.
Director Menville?
Yeah, I just want to thank Mr. Zaragoza, Mrs. Torres, and IID staff worked with the compliance, and that we were able to get this fine down to $450,000. As General Manager Kelly said, it could have been in the seven figures. And I've sat in on some of the compliance meetings that have been going on. I think they're doing an excellent job. They're on the right track, and I think the IID is in pretty good shape. Thank you.
Director Hanks?
Yeah, when the issue of compliance first came up, I remember it quite well because it was a concern of the board, and we pushed hard and got the staff to do the self-study, and that self-study helped mitigate some of that fine, the seven figures that we were looking at. But I think there was other staff members that helped negotiate that with Mr. King. Some of them are no longer here. One of those was Frank Barber, and I think he needs to be recognized for some of the work he did on helping reduce that fine. Thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that, Director Hanks, how true that is. That is. People soon forget. Yeah. Anyway, thank you. Moving on then to groundwater storage. Who is the presenter? Mr. Brook?
Good afternoon, board and the public. Today I wanted to give a update on the progress we've made on identifying some groundwater storage sites for ID entitlement water. Just a couple of things before we get going. First of all, this is an update. There won't really be any recommendations. This is far from the last meeting on groundwater storage, but I do know there was some interest in finding out where we were at in the process, so we'll get going with the update. Also, there's some cost estimates in here. They're good for what we have identified, but they may change depending if we add items or add other sections. So I just wanted to bear that out as well. So we'll get started. We did look at a lot of different sites, and these are kind of the sites that we've narrowed them down to. All of them have a few issues that we need to work through, so I'm going to start with East Mesa. It is within IID service area, and if we were to do a groundwater study, I put this slide up here because I remember how to work this. We would need to study the aquifer for this entire region all the way right here. Not just this section here. So that's the area that we'd be looking at. I think there's some interest in also looking out in this region as well. We can certainly add that in there. I added this slide because it'll come into play a little later when we discuss the issues, but as you can see, all these red dots, yellow dots, black dots indicate well points that have been identified by several different agencies, USGS, private companies. So this will come into play later when we talk about the cost of the program or the cost of the analysis for the region. We have two studies that we can fall back on for a fair amount of information. One is the Livermore study, and the other one is the Crandall study, which was much earlier, back in the 90s. They both are consistent in that they don't really identify an annual acre-foot capacity for the region. They just kind of identify what they think that the region can take. So the Livermore study, I think, was a little more. It was up like 1 million acre-feet. The Crandall study said 700,000, so I put 700,000 plus. But again, it's not an annual figure. It's just a total amount. They really give no estimates. So basically, we're going to consider that unknown at this point. Again, later, as we go through the discussion, when you have storage facilities, there's always withdraw, what we call put and take, basically the conveyance in and out. Because there's no site really identified out there, we don't have any idea on what the withdrawal would be or where would that be. So that would come with the development of the site. We looked at the site ownership briefly out there. It's mixed. It's private lands, but a lot of Bureau of Land Management properties out there as well. The vehicle that allows the IID to be able to do a groundwater storage project out on East Mesa is basically our federal contract to deliver Colorado River water in conjunction with the Imperial County groundwater ordinances. Again, we have no site picked out, so we don't know capacity, so it's kind of hard to develop a site cost to do that. So that would come later in the analysis. There are a few issues, I think, that we would need to address moving through on the East Mesa. The entire East Mesa aquifer is large. It's a huge area out there. And I don't think that any of the reports, we can all take many things out of the reports that we like, that we don't like, but I think we can all agree that it's not a complete report when it comes to actually putting water in the ground. We need to know the characteristics of the aquifer, where the water goes. We need to study the water quality, what happens when you put the water on top of it. Also in the groundwater studies that were done by Crandall and Livermore, they both had a wide range of water quality data from the area. Some of it was very good. Some of it was very, very high in salinity. It looked like it was kind of all over the place, and both of them were consistent in the fact there was a wide range of water quality that we were dealing with out there. So basically, it needs a report that would be complete enough to be able to start spending money and putting water in the ground and know exactly what it's going to be doing. I put this up here because the next item is Imperial County does not have a developed statutory groundwater management plan. I don't know that we would really need it. We don't have a bunch of people drafting off an aquifer. But I do think that in conjunction with the county, we would need to develop some mode of operating forward through their groundwater ordinances. So that brings on the next point, which is, are the Imperial County groundwater ordinance sufficient for an IID storage project? Right now, we think that they are. But it still identifies some things to work through. Does it affect other people out there in the region? That also requires some more study. And then there's another issue that came up, and I think we're okay on this, but we would need to look into it and make sure that we're okay. But they have this thing called the Colorado River Accounting Surface. And I think the best way to describe it, and Tina, you can help me out here, but it is a tie to the river. The drains, the Colorado River would affect certain parts out in that area. It does reach over to the sand dunes that we know of. So we think we're okay with this, but we would still need to check with the Bureau to make sure that this would be a permitted project that would not be involved within that Colorado River Accounting Surface. So in My next steps that I have IID in conjunction with Imperial Counties develop and adopt, and this is mostly for IID. These are my words: groundwater storage operating plan, which basically says we would need to come up with a plan for East Mesa that doesn't affect other users out there and meets the county groundwater ordinances. And then we would need to check with reclamation to make sure we are not inside that accounting surface. I have a small cost in there to develop a framework only of $100,000. That's mostly including staff time and working with the county. And then that does not include any environmental work. We do have a cost estimate to do a full-blown assessment of the aquifer out there. It's in 5 different phases. The first 3 phases, you can see right here is, how did I do that?
You have special powers.
Is $321,000, and I'm calling that a go, no-go price. Basically, we don't have to spend the $4.5 million. We can do a lot of deep assessment on the data that's available out there on the existing wells. It would also do some groundwater quality sampling, and from that work, we would be able to come back to the board and tell them whether we think it's viable to move forward or not. So we're not really spending $4.5 million to go out there to that region. The next project is, or the next possible site is Painted Canyon. It's on the, basically the north side of the Coachella Valley. This is the alluvial fan, and that is looking towards the southeast. It's another shot of it. This right here is the Coachella Canal. This site we've been looking at this for quite a while. There's been quite a bit of study on it. So we have a fairly good idea that this site can handle 80 to 100,000 acre feet annually. And this is really key. This next point is very key. As we look at all these sites, again, the cost to develop the conveyance, the put and take in and out, looms large in most of these. The thing with Coachella is the whole valley is covered with existing wells. So really for the Coachella sites, there's really no cost for take. It's already developed into all this. Really, we'd be building conveyance to the site and for the actual development of the recharge site itself. So there's no cost for withdrawal. It's already existing with groundwater wells in Coachella. The site ownership on Painted Canyon is again mixed, private, good deal of private, and another fair amount is BLM ground. It is within Coachella Valley Water District's jurisdiction through their established groundwater management plan to do this. How IID is able to tap into that, our vehicle to get up there, is basically through the QSA and the groundwater agreement that we have with Coachella. You guys have heard this figure tossed around a couple of times. I just want to be real clear. It is $100 million if it's 100,000 acre feet annually. I want to point out that that is a state-of-the-art system with preconditioning. Depending on what the study would show the recharge capacity would be, that could be scaled back considerably. It does not have to be a Cadillac system. That's just the cost estimates that were provided before. There is an issue up there with Coachella. They have some concerns that recharging in the Painted Canyon area would push water that's in the area of their lower quality wells down into what they call their pristine wells, which are lower in the valley. they're pretty adamant about that. So before we could move forward with Painted Canyon, we would basically need to approach them and offer to pay for a groundwater quality study, which basically identifies what would happen if we were to recharge in the Painted Canyon area. I have a cost estimate that was presented to me. Let's say $200,000 for that. Once we get past that, I have the same thing from another geologist that we use. He has a phase one. Total cost estimate is $1.7 million to put firm numbers on and to develop and design the site of $1.7 million. We have a no-go price of $507,000 for Painted Canyon. That's basically doing the same thing. It would look into what wells are established there now and do some water quality testing. And I know that also includes some drilling too. And that would get us to where we knew if we could move forward with it. Right here is the site. It's Painted Canyon. Here's the alluvial fan. These are the wells that Coachella has tested, that their groundwater is lesser quality, and they're afraid if we recharged in this system, it would push the water down into these lower wells that they consider pristine. The next site is Thomas Levy Recharge Site. This is Avenue 72. This is a developed site in Coachella Valley. This is on the west side of the valley. It's been in operation for a couple years now. I put this picture here, and I want to be clear. This is north, this way. But I put it because I wanted like this. I wanted to get as much of this as I can. Coachella, that picture I just showed you, their recharge system is built in this area right here. Their pumping station is down Avenue 62 down here. The area in green and these areas in yellow, this property belongs to the Bureau of Reclamation. Coachella feels like that we could possibly obtain this land. Another good point is that Lake Cahuilla is right here, which is the end of the Coachella Canal. Basically, we would piggyback on top of the site that they have right now. Right here, you're going to see a picture is really high-end development houses. And the issue that we would have to work through on Avenue 62, here you can see the recharge basins. You can see the ground that's open, and then, of course, it goes on this way, and then you can see the housing development. So now this is north. Another picture of the recharge site. Right now, this is also in Coachella's groundwater management plan. They think that this site can handle another 20 to 30,000 acre feet. Again, the withdrawal that is already in place from Coachella wells down in the egg sector. The site ownership is mixed, a little bit of private and a lot of Bureau of Reclamation grounds, and then a little bit of Torres Martinez. Again, they're able to provide this through their groundwater management plan, and we're able to go up there through the Coachella groundwater agreement. This figure is developed for the site and the pumping stations, 17 to 25 million. The thing that we would have to do before we could start putting water in that region is we would have to do hydrogeological study and make sure that we would not over recharge the system, which they call mounding, and cause issues with the houses, basically water rising to the surface. Basically, the recharge site has to be able to take the water to go down. So before we could move forward on this one, we would need to spend I don't think it would be 600,000, but I put the total in there just in case. But CVWD has a lot of data on this site already. There's already wells developed on the other side of the houses that we could test to make sure that the ground could take enough water so we wouldn't so the water wouldn't rise to the top or to the surface and cause issues for the area. So this would basically be piggybacking on another site that's already there. Then there's Avenue 72, which we call Martinez Canyon. CVWD has already done a test site here. This is the test site right here. This is what the entire alluvium looks like. And here's the test site right here. There is some real benefits to this site as well. There's no, you can see high-end development here. Also, it's back far enough away that, you know, if there wouldn't be really any mounting issues out here, we could build the site as big as we needed it. Another picture of the site itself. This is key because all the sites up in Coachella and even the East Mesa would need to get their water either out of the Coachella or out of the All-American. This heading right here is right up behind the little town of Mecca, and they have a 96-inch pipe that runs straight across the valley to Avenue 72. So in other words, we could put our water in the Coachella Canal and deliver it to this site all the way across the valley, and then it's about a 350-foot lift from the bottom of the valley up to that particular site. So there is conveyance right off the Coachella Canal that's already in place there. This site, initial estimates are 40,000 acre-feet annually. Again, the withdrawal is already in place from existing CVWD wells. Right now, CVWD told me that they are working with the Bureau to get the property as withdrawn BLM lands. Again, the jurisdiction is through the groundwater management plan, and this site is already developed and identified in the groundwater management plan for 40,000 acre feet. And then our vehicle that allows us to do it is the Coachella groundwater agreement. There hasn't been any development of the actual site drawings or anything like that. We would have to develop that from scratch. Basically, we would have to do the same thing here as we did with Painted Canyon. We just have to develop how much recharge it could take and how big of a recharge facility we would build. Basically, we just need to get a comprehensive analysis to determine the potential of the site. These are good figures here, kind of based off the Painted Canyon numbers. But I know that also because of this site that it's in the groundwater management plan and identified that CVWD has a fair idea what that site's going to do. So I would want to be able to at least see what data they had before I gave the board a cost estimate for that. But I think it'd be quite a bit lower than that. CVWD also has an interest in developing that area out there as well for more ag ground and for other areas. So this could become a dual project with CVWD. Before we move forward on picking any site, I think there's some really important questions. These are just a couple that we would need to work with the board on. But basically, how much storage capacity does IID need to provide a sustainable annual supply? When you put an acre foot in, you don't always get an acre foot out. We don't have every year water available to put in. So what we would have to do is determine which is the next question. What water needs will IID target through groundwater storage? There's needs to address overruns. There's industrial water, M&I water. There could be many things that we could address with it, but these are some of the key questions that we would have to work through with the board because they could, what did I do? Well, you don't need the question. Basically, either of those questions could affect what site we're able to go to. So it's okay, Tina. That was the last. That was the last one. So basically, that's where we're at in the process. We have more things to figure out and to discuss with the board, and we're open to looking at other sites. That's just what we have now. Like I said, this is not the last meeting that we'll have on groundwater storage. So that's the presentation I would take.
Okay, at this time, does the board want to make comments now or wait for the people in the audience?
The audience.
Okay, are there any comments, questions? Please come forward to the mic.
I had some questions that I'd help them too.
My name is Lane Sharman. I'm the founder of the Borrego Water Exchange. And I think it's very, very important to look at your neighbor, Borrego Springs, which has studied its aquifer, characterized it very well, has a very strong farming community in Borrego, is in a serious overdraft condition, and has looked to the IID on many occasions for cooperation and for investigation. So I think that we need to add this to the mix. It has, I think, great economic potential, great social potential, as well as very challenging, but I think doable political hurdles. And I'd like to see that studied. I realize that it's not an easy conveyance issue, but I think that it can be solved. And I think that there is a lot of financial support at the state and federal level, although that's also a challenge as well, too, as well as perhaps private and public partnership mechanisms.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to follow up on that. I'm Jerry Rolling with the Borrego Water District. We have entered into an agreement with the Bureau of Reclamation, which we call the Southeast California Basin Study, which the Bureau of Reclamation has come up with $425,000 from the Water Smart program, and Borrego Water District has come up with $425,000 from in-kind work that we've already produced, USGS report studies, various studies that we've done already on our aquifer. Imperial Irrigation District and Coachella Valley Water District are both included in this program, and we are hopefully be signing the MOU in the next few weeks and get this project rolling. But it will be the Bureau of Reclamation looking at the whole Southeast California together and seeing how we can further enhance the storage and delivery and demand, looking at all the demand supply issues that are with the valley in the area. And we hope to have some good numbers out of that. This should come out in December of 2012 when the report will be out.
Okay. Thank you.
Question. Can
Director
I ask you a
Mendel?
question? How deep are you going for water at Borrego now?
It varies. On the north end of the aquifer where the farming area is, you're about 300 feet. In the main area of town, you're about 150 to 180 feet.
And you're overdrafting now, right?
We're overdrafting about 3 feet a year. We estimate that we're overdrafting about 14,000 acre feet a year.
How many, the agriculture there, how much do they use per year?
They use about 17. The golf courses use about 6, and the people use about 3.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to come and make a comment or ask questions? Please just come forward. Pardon me? Just go up there and just ask a question. Well, do you have a comment? Do you have questions? Well, please come up here and you have to state your name for the record and ask your question. It's only a few steps. It's not that far.
You're on camera, too.
I'm Cal Mason, a basic citizen, common man on the street. Vince, what is the quality of the water in the East Mesa that would be pumped out? Could that water be taken down to the sea to mitigate any environmental issues with water at the Salton Sea? I mean, are we talking 5 times what the Colorado River is for irrigation?
I'll answer it this way. There's lots of things we can do. This particular study is about IID putting water in, taking water out. There is a possibility, based on the reports from East Mesa, that we would have to find something to do with water to make room for water going in. But part of the study would be what happens to the water we put in, combining with the groundwater that's there. So to answer your question, we could, but this is really about putting water in and taking water out. So if we had to find something to do with it, that would be a question to run by. I don't have the answer to that right now.
Okay, and no offense to Borrego, but this is our water. We should probably try to keep it as close to home as possible.
Okay. Anyone else?
I have a question, rather than trying to walk over to that area. We're talking about putting groundwater in. Now, there is a gentleman here within our presence, I think, who has some experience with groundwater in the east side of the valley. We also have the Salt Sea out there. Now, we're sloshing this water back and forth, taking it out, putting it in, and whatever. It is known fact that the Salt Sea has subterranean fuses or whatever, where that it has gotten into the wells where we get our artesian water or whatever, and it causes salt content to rise. What is the percentages or the chance of that happening in the west side of the valley? We're going into these aquifers. They are drop low. They're protected from the Salton Sea, or will the Salton Sea be able to let water seep in and the salt content go up in those pristine wells?
Vince? Can you attempt to?
We don't have anything that would tell us what's going on to that level. That does happen. As you deplete a groundwater basin, other water finds its way in there, whether it's seawater or water from other pockets. So, but that's what the study would identify, exactly what's going on out there.
Okay. Any other questions? Or there was a gentleman in the back that.
Quick question for Vince. I'm Tom Sefton with Sefton Water Technology. Have you considered the possibility of making direct use of water in the agricultural drain system for geothermal cooling with pre-processing, and then using your supply to East Mesa and withdrawal from East Mesa to replenish that water into the drain system, which would have the benefit of having direct access to geothermal plants for ag drain water and maintaining the flow by doing a groundwater banking and recharge?
I think there's a couple of issues there that I would want to clarify with you, but I'm definitely open to understanding what you're talking about. So I think water quality would be a big issue on all those factors.
Yeah, Tom, we've We
Mr. Garber, please.
we
speak
engage
into
with the
mic.
geothermals who are requesting water service from IID, and so far they've indicated that the TDS content of the drain water is too high for their use. I know they've refused to consider those types of water sources for cooling, at least at present, and I don't know what it would take to make them utilize that kind of water.
It would be a problem to use it directly because it would cause scaling in the cooling towers and other problems. However, I'd like to just make available to Vince some studies done in the 70s and 80s in the San Joaquin Valley to do pre-processing of agricultural drain waters from the San Joaquin Valley to make it suitable for direct use in geothermal, and a fairly cost-effective process to both recover energy and to completely control any of the brine discharge from that. So I'll leave those with Vince to take a look at, and I'll be happy to talk with him at any time. Here's some cost estimates also.
Okay, great.
Anyone else like to come forward and ask questions or make a comment? Mr. Horn, you're awfully quiet today. No, not really. It's just making a comment. Director Sanchez, any comments? No comment. Director Desert?
Yeah. Currently, did we store some water up in the Coachella area this past year?
Yes, we did. We stored 500 acre feet in 2010.
Which facility? Did
It went into the Thomas Levy, Avenue 62.
That's the one that has the underground pipeline that feeds it?
That's Avenue 7. No, this Thomas Levy is almost right on top of Lake Cahuilla, which is the very end of the Coachella Canal. So it's the one that was by the houses.
So it's fairly close to the La Quinta offices.
Yeah, very close. Oh, yeah, it's within a couple of miles, exactly.
And so we put 500 acre feet. Is that the first time we've ever stored water outside of our area or stored water underground?
That I know of, yeah.
And all those reports and documents that we report to and people that are watching, they're all aware of that now?
Well,
I don't know if we need to.
it's hard to say what everybody else is aware of, but it hasn't been hidden.
Right. But I'm not sure who we would check in to do that. I mean, I hope I'm understanding your question.
An annual report that's put together that
There, it will be reported out, yes, but it's only been in for 4 or 5 months now, so it will be reported out in the water accounting.
And that experience of going through the process of getting the water up there, negotiating, getting it in the ground and paying for it, was a pretty easy process, or?
Absolutely.
It functioned pretty well?
Mm-hmm.
We haven't pulled any of that water out, though.
No, not yet.
But we already had an agreement in place, so the only thing we had to negotiate was some of the more subtleties of the agreement about what the cost is going to be.
Thank you.
Okay, Director Manville?
Yeah, no, I'm just glad that we're having this public groundwater storage workshop, and I know there's been a lot of investigation going on, and I know the IID needs groundwater storage because we've had a couple of years of underrun, and groundwater storage is a beneficial use of water. We need to try to figure out how to get storage. It would be nice if we could do something on the East Mesa in our own territory. And I know that'll be expensive, but I think we need to do some exploratory work on East Mesa and see if there's possibilities there that we can store water underground, because it is a beneficial use of water. And haven't done groundwater storage in the past because it's very expensive to do. And but now we have to. This board is thinking ahead and looking ahead, and I think the board's moving in the right direction. And I appreciate the work that staff has done to this point in time. Thank you,
Director Hanks?
Yeah, I have a couple of comments and then some questions. I think one of the things we have to look at and first figure out what is the ideal features that we're looking for, and then what is the purpose of it. And my way of thinking, I'll go along with Cal Mason with the comments he made, and along with Director Minville. I'd like to keep it in our service area, and I think wherever we store the water, it needs to be as far upstream in our distribution system as we can get it. Then that gives us, I think, gives us more flexibility on our own personal use. I also, I know for the people here at Borrego, and desperately needing water, I just assume they probably go through the same things that we do as far as the restrictions on the water, the regulations and water law. It's not like we can just say, okay, we're gonna be good neighbors and send you water. It's not that simple. There's all types of issues, rights of first refusal and so forth that I know about. So I can only imagine how many of them are out there. But I also had this question. If we build outside of our service area, do we lose our tax exempt status as far as property taxes goes?
I don't think so, but we can look into that.
Okay, because it was always my understanding that could be a problem. And then also, if we're outside our service area and in times of overdrafts in the region and shortage of water, what's the limits on our priority for withdrawal of the water? Our situation may be different than theirs, but will that put a hold on our water if something comes up? And then 3, what are the obstacles to market the water? Who has the right of first refusal? And are there other barriers? Do we have to have the blessings of MWD to be able to store water? And I'll bite my tongue on that one. I think an important question for me, and I think some of the people here, because I know some people here at present probably have some sites that would serve as groundwater storage areas. How much surface area would we need for recharging? Maybe you can just tell us what the acreage was in some of those, or.
I don't think we have enough info to determine that right now. The perk rate in the particular regions would have something to do with that. The aquifer itself, is it confined? Can we get all the water in get all the water out that we put in? I just think I probably neglected to say it. I'm thinking back now, but we were going to need to spend a little money. Conceptually, East Mesa has some real good points, and I think we're going to have to spend a little money to find out what we're really dealing with out there.
Okay,
that would be determined in that study, Mr. Hanks.
Okay, I would just like to add this point. I know there's a number of wells on East Mesa, and the area that some people call East Mesa, and then there's areas that I'm aware of, and I'd pointed out before,
right,
past the sand hills,
right,
Clear over here,
where there's water.
Okay.
When we talk about studying East Mesa, I think we could probably limit the size of what we want to study. We don't have to study the whole East Mesa. And then I also am aware of some studies that have, preliminary studies that have taken place out there, and whether we have some opportunities to piggyback off of some of their studies and move forward. I don't know how much information some of the people that have land out here, whether they're even willing to even talk about it today, but or what studies have been conducted. But I don't, when we look at that cost, I think, you're looking at $4.5 million to study it. What does that include? Does that include the whole East Mesa, or can we pick out 600 or areas where we have pretty much a defined aquifer to study? Or?
Well, I think that's really the problem, is that all the studies that we do have define the aquifer as being huge and all intertied in some way. If it is broken, we would, broken up into sections, we would have to figure out how they're connected or how they're not connected, if they're confined. Definitely some of the information that you just mentioned would be a big piece of that puzzle, but I would certainly think that wouldn't be all of it. So, but it would have, the aquifer itself needs to be defined, and we need to know where the water goes and and then the water quality as well.
I don't know whether now's, go ahead, Mr. Simmons.
Could I make a presentation?
Sure.
Yes,
Sure.
please come to the mic and state your name for the record, please.
I'm Willie Simmons from El Centro, and I want to first compliment Vince on the work he's done in this project. He's done a lot of work on it. Historically, I wanted to go back in history. My family had 450 acres out on the Standard Canal, irrigated out of the Coachella Canal. And at first, we went out there with sprinklers and thought that to conserve water because it was so sandy. And the district had some pipes, survey pipes in there. This piece of ground was located between the Coachella Canal and the High Line. And soon we found out that there were dikes between us, the Coachella, and the Highline Canal that held the water in there. And they were testing it and testing it. Soon we found out that the water was coming up and we had a water problem on the surface. So at that time, we were measuring that. The lakes developed out in that area. And the lakes, the surface of the lakes were probably 15 or 20 feet higher than the Coachella Canal. So the district at that time, this was in the 70s, I guess, and at that time the district was pulling water out of the lakes back into the Highline Canal, and it was gushing, huge amounts of water. So I thought at that time, historically, what happened to the ground under the Carter administration when they decided to concrete the Coachella Canal? They wanted the property, the land, and so under eminent domain, the BLM took the ground away from us. But in that time, it was interesting for us to understand what was happening out there, and so it no longer, they took most of our ground away at that period. But I often thought how much water could be stored on the other side of the canal, underneath the dunes, because there's a vast amount of area there on the east side of the Coachella Canal, huge area on there, but I don't know, and Vince could probably do some studying and find out how much water could be stored underneath the dunes, because who knows how much that is.
We can certainly include that.
But it was interesting historically. I think you'd be probably limited if you got down close to the High Line, but you might have unlimited storage capacity if you went under the dunes. I don't know, but an awful lot of work probably has to be done in that area. Now, this property I was talking about that Carter and the BLM took was off of the Standard Canal. And that would be almost due east of Calapat. So it was an interesting I could almost point to it out there, but it would probably be a lack of interest.
It would have to be
Yeah, Vince has it pretty well.
up in,
Well, there's the Coachella.
Uh-huh.
And there's the east sideline, so it'd be probably
In the
in this
middle?
region right in here.
A little bit north of there.
Oh,
but
even
north,
further. Okay.
Yeah,
right,
right in
east of
there.
Calapat. Where's Calapat?
That's where the L comes around.
Right there.
Okay, it would be right in this area.
There you go, right there.
Stellar's got her laser
Uh-huh.
pointer again.
So I don't know if I've helped you or hurt you, but anyway, that was historically all this took place
Interesting
probably
information, yeah.
in the 70s,
Well, it looks like
1970s.
it's pretty much in the area that would be looked at as well. so.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. So I
Thank you
might
for your
have-
comments, appreciate them.
So
Willie, don't you still have 160 acres out there?
Yeah, but it's on the other side of dunes. It's right in that area.
On the,
but
it's east of the Coachella, Maine?
east of the Coachella Main and just east of the dunes.
So
Actually,
there, do you have standing water there at any time?
there's water there, but I don't know how far down it is. How far down you go, because the railroad has put down wells in that area, but I don't know how deep they go to get water. But the water looks fresh. It doesn't look, as far as quality goes.
Are you the only private landowner out there? The rest of the ground belongs to the Bureau or what?
The rest of it is pretty duney. It's got a lot of dunes and on private ground, but most of it, Catellis used to have a lot of ground out there. Catellis was a corporation that took the railroad property, but they made a deal with the BLM, and now the BLM owns it. Now I don't know. There's very, very little private ground in that area, and it's a lot of it is really in the dunes. It would be very difficult probably to handle much. You're pretty isolated. We call that the Amos, because there's an old town site on the railroad. It's called Amos, where when the railroads were going through and using steam, well, they stopped there for water. It's an interesting, and there's an old graveyard there where they had a town site, but most of the people that lived there were railroad workers. And this goes way back. And a lot of the old timers, have made comments on it and everything. But it's interesting that it would be terrific if the study would show that you could put water under the dunes, unlimited water under there, and take it out when you wanted it, and put it in, and then take it out into the Highline Canal or the Coachella Canal. I don't know. You'd have to make a deal with Coachella, I guess, to reinstate it in the Coachella Canal, but I think you could easily take it into the Highline. Thanks.
Well, thank you for the history lesson.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Willie's, I've been out to his place here. It's east of the Mammoth Wash area, and not that far removed to some of the citrus groves in the area there. But his property is way in the north end. We call it the pockets, where water that comes out of the chocolate washes up right against the dunes, and then it'll pond up there. That's where the deer come in and have their fawns in that area right there.
Please.
Board and General Manager Vince. I wish I'd had that discussion with him about 5 years ago.
State your name for the
Rod
record,
Williams,
sir.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Local farmer. Because I've been trying to figure out, because I've had the lease from Mr. Brock on that property the last 6 years. It's in the East Mesa. And when I first went out there, I have a little sounder. I've had quite a bit of experience with groundwater over the years, developed a lot of wells in other areas. And it was very unique to me because my personal information, I dropped a sounder in, this would have been 7 years ago, in what we call one of the two bigger wells. And I put a brand new meter on the well, was producing 2,400 gallons a minute. And this is my own information. I didn't have any help studying this. And the sounder, before I started, registered 67 feet to water. And the drawdown at that time was 4 feet, which is phenomenal. That indicates that there's underground pressure in that area that's bringing the water up, because the normal cone of depression, when you're pumping 2,400 gallons a minute with a 10-inch pump, the normal cone of depression would be in excess of 70 feet. And so for that to maintain that much water with that low of amount of drawdown when the pump's active, it's a phenomenon thing that I'd never seen in my lifetime. And over the last few years, it's maintained itself. But the problem that we see, I guess it's a problem, it's not a problem from the agricultural standpoint, is that the water level is raising. And if you go approximately 15 miles directly south down in Mexico, the land actually started emulsifying with water after the earthquake. Okay, so my question has been, the San Andreas Fault runs pretty much parallel to the Coachella Canal. And the area that Mr. Simmons was referencing starts in the Pilot Knob area. And if you would completely read the Lawrence Livermore study, every page of it, you will find that the Pilot Knob area has the second largest capacity available in Imperial County. But I think what from that analysis that he was telling me there, where they had that much water on the north end, the water has got to have, it has to be coming through a fractured area in a fault to be able to put that kind of pressure underground. But the beautiful part of that whole area is that it's a very large aquifer, and it's split by the fault. So to address what Mr. Hanks was asking and trying to keep the groundwater in the upstream, I would say that the studies need to be in that southeastern area of the East Mesa because of the water quality. I mean, I drink water out there every day I'm out there, and it's much better than the water that's in the canal to drink. I'm not going to elaborate on studies. There's in-depth studies been done in the last year on pump studies. I got my instructions today from ORMAT that I could not release a study at this time. There was quite a bit of money expended, and there's a little bit of negotiation that's in the process, but what I'm telling you are things that I personally have done, okay? And you know, I think that it warrants a lot of merit to the logistics with the Coachella, and also Mr. Brock and his family put when they were farming the Brock Research, which is now the large reservoir that's there, there's an 80 acre feet per day crossing that was not used underneath the interstate that could get the water back into the All-American. It's beside where they put a completely new pumping or piping system out of the canal and tore the interstate up and brought that over to the All-American. And so that other box, that concrete box, is there that would justify 80 acre feet a day crossing under the interstate that's not being used. It's a very critical thing when you look at this overall picture. Getting water from the East Mesa back into the All-American is a big issue. And so, you know, I'll be glad to help in any way I can. I've got quite a bit of history from pumping there. As far as I know, those are the only active pumps, and there are 3 wells on Mr. Brock's property that we've pumped since I've been there and kept them active. And so anybody that wants to look at those, I would be more than happy to help in this situation, because I've sat here for the last 2 years and watched 500,000 acre feet of water leave the valley. And someday we're going to need that. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I got Mr. Williams. The tube underneath Interstate 8, the 80 acre feet, who owns that?
I think the district does. I would say the district would own it.
That the tube that used to feed the water to Brock Research?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's the
That's
tube
the,
that went under the
that's the
highway
flume
to
that
water
went
to
under the
Brock
interstate
Research.
to the old Brock Research farm.
Okay, that 80 acre
Okay.
feet a day, that's just about 29,000 acre feet in a year.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
But
So you're saying you could gravity feed it back into the All-American through that same tube? That was
I don't know if you could gravity feed it. I haven't checked the elevations, Mr. Desert, but I know that from the center of the property, when you stand in the center of the section of deeded land, it's the lowest point in that area. You can see the Coachella's elevated. From there, it's about, if you went from the northeast corner, it's about 1.4 miles. The chosen routes are probably 1.6 miles to the Coachella.
So if you conceptualized an idea of pumping the water out of the ground and delivering it to the All-American, would you pump it into the Brock Reservoir and then take it out of the reservoir through that pipe?
I think you would have to do your legal work and find out if you can use that. Otherwise, what I'm telling you is there is another access point to get the water across the All-American.
You pump it around the Brock 2 reservoir.
Right. Any other questions?
Nope.
Thank you.
I want to thank you all for being here today. This is the first step. I know that boards and boards before us have been talking about groundwater storage, as Mr. Carter knows. And so hopefully we're going in the right direction. And as we learn more, you will also be included in the knowledge. Thank you for being here. Good night.